All right, so I don't know how much more battery life I got left here, but I'll just finish up. So I've given you the good, the bad, the ugly on the H string. It sounds like I was doing more negative than positive. But here's the thing about the H string. If you give it time, spend time with the instrument, even if it feels weird for the first year or so, give it a year or two, and then make a decision whether you're going to stay with it. Chances are you're going to stay with it once you start learning those things that I mentioned, like with the really flat fingerboard, getting used to that. Once you get used to that, and then, the scale length and then the actual width of it, and you start, using your arpeggios and riffs and all that stuff, and big jazz chords and whatever, play metal, whatever. You really are going to appreciate the extra extended range of what you can get out of it. When I want my heaviest rhythm guitar double tracked, this guitar really performs really well on that. And I could use my other guitars for the more higher stuff. So this can really complement the bass a lot. I know some people make the joke between, H string, we don't need two bass players in the band, but this will give you more punch. There's no way around it. There's more punch coming out and thunder coming out of this thing than you could possibly imagine. So that's what it gives you. But every note is heavier and thicker no matter where you play, which is really cool. But it's a little harder work. That's all I'm really telling you, is that you're going to work a little harder with the H string for the first little bit to get used to it. So it's taken me about a year to be able to play this thing where I pick it up and I can noodle away on it and, feel confident, where I don't have to, really worry about missing, because my muscle memory is now getting used to playing this guitar because I've spent time with it. So spend time with your H string. Force yourself. Even pick it up once a week, whatever, twice a week, because if you don't spend enough time with it, you will feel like you wasted your money. You will feel like that it's not doing what it can do. When the opposite, once you get past the hurdles of working a little bit harder for stuff, what will happen? Also, you're going to build more finger strength because of the heavier strings. One of the things that happens once you get acclimatized to that is then you get more creativity, because you can now hit notes that you weren't expecting. You can fill in chords, make those chords 3 times wider. There's so many things you can do with it. So give it the chance it needs. Take your time with it. Spend a couple of years with it. Like, spend time. Like I say, like Billy Sheenan was saying, don't just jump to the next thing. Spend time with it, because there's some instruments, again, like 24 3/4 Gibson scale. Anybody can pick those up and they will play them, no problem. Fender scale 25.5, most people can get used to that, no problem. But when you're getting into 26.5, and then you got the extra string, you got the width, you got to give that time. This will still be easier to play than your average bass, but you're gonna have to think a little bit differently. Don't think of it as a normal guitar. Think of it as a whole new thing. But this thing does become its own rhythm section and leads at the same time. It's really cool. So I don't see myself in the future not ever having an H string. Even if I didn't touch it for a couple of years, I'd always want to have it just in case I got the inspiration. But you don't get inspiration unless you play things. So if you get one, whether you get a cheap one, you get an expensive one, this one's, middle of the road, right? It is professional enough, but it's not the best one out there. Would I recommend the Schecters over this? Yeah, but the Schecter might be a little bit better, but you're probably going to run into the same problems as the videos. Like, the H string just has inherent problems from design point of view, with the parallel frets versus the fan fret, right? But there are things that you can live with. It is what it is, and it's not really a problem. It's just it's things to overcome and things restrict. There's limitations to it, believe it or not. But once you understand those limitations, you can work around that and then get almost limitless with it. So it's a really double-edged sword of, all that. It's strange how it has its limitations, but yet it has all this endless possibilities. Like, what an instrument, you know what I mean? It's kind of like somebody finding a new way to play the triangle, you know what I mean? And make it work. There's only one way to play the triangle, but some somebody might come up with a better way. And then it's like suddenly there's endless possibilities. Well, I'm not comparing an 8-string to a triangle, but a little tin triangle there. But yeah, so I'm very happy a year on. I don't see myself getting rid of this. I think I'm more of a 7-string player. I think 7-string is the limit a guitar can practically go and still stay in this kind of form. I think if you're going to go 8-string, you're really probably better off with a fan fret, but budget, whatever style. And I do believe that, once I try a fan fret, I have a hunch that there's going to be other hurdles with that, because now you have a longer scale on one side, which will, other things you would have to get used to. So I think this is a great place to start. And I think it's also maybe not for, like a beginner, but I definitely wouldn't recommend a beginner starting with an 8-string. I'm not saying you wouldn't be able to do it, but I'm saying you'd be confusing yourself a lot more than you need to. But, you do you. The only last thing I would say about this guitar, my biggest critique of it is the buzzing, because I wish it did have better frets on it. Because like my Mark Holcomb guitar, although much more expensive than this one, it's almost double the price of this one, has the same radius fingerboard and there's almost no buzzing on it. But with this one, they did build it down to price, so you got to live with that. So that might be something with a more inexpensive, 8-string. You might have to live with a little bit more buzzing. But that said, it doesn't really get too far out of control. So that's about my only real critique of